Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Chakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Ezekiel chapter 37. This is chapter I was thinking about earlier this morning, and I just went through it, put a couple of precepts together, and Lord's will, it'll be an edifying lesson. Ezekiel 37 chapter is a very important chapter in the ministry because it speaks about, the low state, the dead state that we've been in for a long period of time. It also speaks about how the Lord, would raise us up out of that position, and it shows the different stages of waking up in this truth. Because there are different stages. There are those that are woken up but not fully. There are those that are partially woken up, those that are halfway woken up, and those that are fully woken up. And the ones that are fully woken up are the elect according to the scriptures. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go right to the book of Ezekiel, the 37th chapter. We're gonna start off there and take it from there. Ezekiel 37 and 1. Excuse me. It says, "The hand of the Lord, Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, was upon me, and carried me out in the spirit of the Lord, and set me down in the midst of the valley, which was full of bones." Now, offhand, you would think that it's just talking about an actual valley, and there was a whole bunch of bones there, and that was the vision. But the pretty much this goes a lot deeper than that, Now, when you understand the geography, or layout of different mountains and hills and peaks, forests and deserts and valley, that valley is a low land, a low ground, usually between two mountains, or two hills. That indentation in between, that's the valley. So that low valley is a representation of America. And why is that? Because America is low in morals and values. They present themselves as having high standards, but they really don't. Because the highest standard that you can get is to trust in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And here they say that in God they trust and all of that, but they don't, because when you look at the actions and the laws and legislations and different things that they do, you could clearly see that they don't worship the Most High. And everything about this place is a gradual degeneration of people's morals, health wise. I mean, just everything, etiquette, everything in general, starts to demoralize from this place, America, because this is Babylon the Great, and this is that harlot that sits upon the scarlet colored beast, And one of the scriptures we usually go to prove that this is a valley is the book of Psalms, the 23rd chapter. And we're just going to go straight to the point. And that would be in the 4th verse. It says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." The valley of the shadow of death is a place where death is lurking everywhere. And this happens to be one of the curses that the Lord put upon us as a nation. And this is why you have drive-by shootings. This is why you have, so-called innocent bystanders. This is why you have, so-called stray bullets, going into people's houses, killing babies, killing, just killing different individuals, And this is why you see death lurking at every corner, because this is a part of the curses that would fall upon us in these last days, especially in these last days. This happened in many different captivities, but especially here in America. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 64. I'm sorry, I'm going to go to the 65th verse just to get to the point. And among those nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. And you see that, because you never know if you're going to get up the next day. You never know if you're going to make it through the day. You don't know if the cops are going to come harass you. Just a whole plethora of things that happen. It says, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life. It's not guaranteed. That's why, we say Lord's will do this or do that. It says in the morning, meaning when you wake up, thou shalt say with the Most High were even. So in the morning when we get up, we say Lord's will, we make it to the evening. And at even thou shalt say with the Most High were morning. So in the evening time when we get home, we pray to the Lord, Lord's will, we make it to the morning. So the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And this is part of the hardcore curses. So when King David said, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, this is a shadow of death, and it's a low land, it's an immoral land, and it's a valley, a low land. It says, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me, which is this truth, right? So going back to Ezekiel, right? The bones part represents the nation of Israel, which we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that a little further, into the lesson. So it says, and caused me to pass by them round about. Now he actually saw Jake in the condition that they're in, and when Ezekiel passed by, meaning he would be in the midst of these dry bones, teaching these dry bones, as well as the prophets. And behold, there were very many in the open valley, and lo, they were very dry. All right. So let's go from there. These bones that were in this valley that the prophet Ezekiel walked amongst, which is a representation of the prophets, walking in the midst of Israel, and they were very dry. All right. So let's find out why they were very dry. Let's first go to the book of Psalms 106 and 43. Many times did he deliver them, but they provoked him with their counsels and were brought low for their iniquity. And when you're brought low, it comes to a point where the Lord brought us so low that we forgot who we were. Because as it says in Jeremiah 2, we forsook the living waters, and hewed us out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. Now let's go from there to Proverbs 21 and 16. It says, the man that wandereth out of the way of understanding, which is this truth, shall remain in the congregation of the dead. And this is why they were very dry. And they were known as the valley of the dry bones. They're pretty much like the walking dead. They have life in them. They walk, but as far as the understanding is concerned, they're dead mentally, spiritually. All right. So now let's go from there to the book of Revelation 11. And this is why all of these precepts, they all link together. Revelation 11 and 8, and their dead bodies, meaning the Israelites, not physically dead, but spiritually dead, shall lie in the street of the great city. And what is this great city? America. And all throughout America, Jake was here. You had it's not a coincidence that all of the tribes are here now, and that all of the tribes came here, to this country, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. You know why it's called Sodom? Because of the alphabet people, and Egypt, because this is the, another hardcore iron furnace captivity that our people endured. Some went through it harder than others, but nevertheless, we all went through it. It says, where also our Lord was crucified, because here they crossed out Yahushai. Now I'm going to leave Revelation 11 because we're going to come back to that a little later in the lesson. So now let's go from there to the book of Romans, chapter 4, just to get an idea of these dry bones in the valley. Romans 4:17, as it is written, I have made thee a father of many nations. This is the Most High speaking to Abraham. Before him whom he believed, even the Most High who quickeneth the dead. See, the Lord who quickeneth the dead. To quicken something means to make it alive. It says, and calleth those things which be not as though they were. You know, and that's why they were very dry. And the Lord had to cause something to happen for them to become alive once again. Now let's go from there to the last precept on this particular issue here. Let's go to Ephesians 2:1. And you hath he quickened who were dead in trespasses and sins. So this is what caused us to be in that dry, dead state. And the Lord quickened us. And this is why the scripture said that we must be renewed in the spirit of our minds. It says, wherein in time past you walked according to the course of this world. See, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. And pretty much we became the children of disobedience at one time, because the actual children of disobedience is Esau, the Edomites. But that title passed on to us because we became so rebellious that we became the children of disobedience. It says, among whom also we all had our conversation in times past in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. And until the Lord quickened us, woke us up from this dead state. Okay, so it goes on to say, but the Most High, who is rich in mercy, for his great love wherewith he loved us, even when we were dead in sins, hath quickened us together with Yahushua. By grace you are saved. So we're looking at, you know, the progression from being in a dead state to coming out of that dead state to being fully revived. All right, and that's what we're seeing right now in America, going all the way back to 1969, 1970, when this truth that we're speaking now really started to take hold, you know, of the world, so to speak, and hath raised us up together and made us sit together in heavenly places in Yahushua HaMashiach. This is why the Apostle Paul in Philippians, the 3rd chapter, says that our conversation or our citizenship is in heaven, that in the ages to come he might show the exceeding riches of his grace and his kindness toward us through Yahushua HaMashiach. For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is a gift of the Most High, not of works, lest any man should boast. It says, for we are his workmanship, created in Yahushua HaMashiach unto good works, which the Most High hath before ordained that we should walk in them. Yeah, because that's what's going to lead to eternal life, you know, bringing us out of that dead state. So now let's go back to Ezekiel 37, and let's go to the 3rd verse now, because it said they were very dry, meaning they were extremely gone. And you see that with Jake today. You still have some Jakes out there that are very dry. You try to talk to them and it's like talking to a brick wall. You probably get more out of a brick wall, you know, than talking to Jake out here. So it says, and he said unto me, son of man, can these bones live? It says, and I answered, O Lord power, thou knowest, because they were so dry that he was like, the Lord was asking, can they live? And this shows you the power of the Most High. He's able to take that away, put us in a deep sleep, you know, and able to pull that deep sleep off and fully wake us up, you know. And that's, you know, that's amazing. It says, again, he said unto me, prophesy upon these bones. And that's what our job is to prophesy upon these bones. Because there's going to be a 2-part judgment. The judgment is going to be the salvation for the elect of the nation of Israel and destruction to the 2/3 Esau and the other nations. So it's a 2-part judgment. And our job is to teach and prophesy these words upon the bones, which the bones represent the nation of Israel. All right. It says, and say unto them, O ye dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. And that's why when we read Ezekiel, the 2nd chapter, and Ezekiel, the 3rd chapter, when the Lord said to eat this roll and go and teach the children of Israel, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear. If they hear, the Lord gave them the ears to hear, and they will be converted and be healed. And if they don't hear, or if they forbear, the Lord closed their ears so that they wouldn't accept, so that they wouldn't be healed. All right. It says, thus saith the Lord power unto these bones. Behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and you shall live. So what is this breath? This breath is the pure understanding of this truth. Let's go from there to the book of Genesis, chapter 2, and verse 7. It says, and the Lord power formed man of the dust of the ground. And this is why Adam's name is Adam, because the word Adam comes from the word ground, which is Adama, and the richest, deepest soil on the earth is what? Dark brown. It don't make no sense that the Most High would be a so-called white man and his son would be so-called white man when the skin tone of and the whole makeup of Esau is so weak. But that goes into something else. But this is the part. It says, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Why? Because he quickened Adam. And there's other precepts that say that. He quickened Adam. He brought him out of, because when everything was created, everybody was on the same level. Man was on upright on 2 feet, but they were still on the level of the beast until the Lord breathed into Adam his nostril the breath of life and gave them power and authority and dominion over everything else. It says, and man became a living soul. Why? Because he was no longer in that dead state. So you got to look at Jake out here in the world, these dry bones, as nothing more than beasts that have no understanding, until the Lord opens up that understanding to them to be able to see. And that is what separates, the elect from the non-elect of the nation of Israel. So let's go from there. Let's go to the book of Sirach. Let's go to Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 17. We're going to jump around a little bit. I'm going to read the first verse. It said, the Lord created man of the earth and turned him into it again. Right? Verse 5. They received the use of the 5 operations of the Lord. You could see, smell, taste, touch, hear. Right? And in the 6th place, he imparted to them understanding, which is where? In the mind. And that's what made Adam a living soul. The understanding of the mind. It says, and in the seventh, speech. And now we're able to speak. Right? An interpreter of the cogitations thereof, to be able to interpret the things that go on in the mind. It says, counsel in the tongue and eyes, ears and a heart gave he them to understand. So that's how Adam became a living soul. And this is how the dry bones in the valley will get breath into them to be able to wake up out of that dead state. Withal, he filled them with the knowledge of understanding and showed them good and evil. Because we have to know both sides of the tree in order to be a perfect judge. And this is why in the kingdom of heaven, we will all be changed. Our minds will be changed. The law, statutes, and commandments will be put into our minds. And we already have the knowledge of evil, because this is what we were brought up in this evil world. And there's not a better teacher of evil than America. The Most High is the one that created evil. And America, Babylon the Great, personifies evil. And people think it's, and the thing is, they present it in such a deceptive way that people think it's okay. Because that's how the devil, operates. That's how he comes. He don't come, with all that rah-rah. He comes deceptive. He comes subtle, like that serpent in the garden. So going back to Ezekiel 37. Now we're going to go to the 6th verse. And I will lay sinews upon you. Now, what is sinews? Sinews are ligaments, a different, that's as they call it, fibrous substance that holds bones together. The tendons and all that, everything that holds the bones and everything together. And those sinews are a representation of Jake coming together for a particular cause. But ultimately, the cause that they should be coming together for would be the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And you've seen a lot of times in the past where Jake has come together, but just didn't have the right understanding. And that's what this is going to go into. And will bring up flesh upon you. Why? Because now you're going to come together as a people, put differences away for a particular cause. It says, and cover you with skin. Yeah. And put breath in you, and you shall live, and you shall know that I am the Lord. Yeah. So ultimately, this is what is going to bring the tabernacles of David back together. Is that breath. It's not just knowing that you're an Israelite. It's the whole package. Right? So let's go from there real quick. Let's go to Genesis, the 29th chapter, just to deal on the bone issue. Genesis 29 and 13. It says, and it came to pass, and there's many scriptures you could go to. This is just one. And it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him a space of a month. So pretty much that's what the bones represent. It represents kin. And when you read further down in Ezekiel 37, it explains to you what those bones represent. All right. So it goes on to say in Ezekiel 37 and 7, so I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise. And this noise happened, around that time period when Elder Albert Bivens was on the scene. Because remember, everybody says 1969, 1970, but Elder Albert Bivens was teaching way before that, And you had Jake coming together under particular things, especially like in the 60s and the 70s. They were coming together with the so-called Black Power movements, with the so-called, Native American Indian movements, the so-called Latino movements. They were coming together as a people, right? It says, and that's what the noise was, that tumult. And behold, a shaking. Yeah, because, it's like, that kind of shook Jake up, because prior to that, Jake wasn't really unifying. They were pretty much, it's just whatever, every man for himself. But those so-called revolutionary times or awakening times, as to give a certain attention to the injustices that were being done. It wasn't just being done to one or two people at random. It was just being done to all of Jake in general. So they recognized a problem. They got together to see if they could find a solution. Now, some of the leaders, the leaderships, they were compromised. They were brought in there, to start shit, But the thing is, regardless, this is all prophecy. Some of the leaders were sincere, but they were just lost. And some of them were just bought and paid for. Some of them started off noble and became corrupted. But whatever the case is, they started coming together and bringing other, Jakes together. Right? It says, and the bones came together, bone to his bone. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud, and it's like that started a movement among Judah, among the other tribes, the so-called Puerto Ricans, the so-called Mexicans, so-called Native American Indians. It started a movement of unity, and they even intermingled among each other. You even had Judah and Ephraim and Issachar that will come together in certain ventures. Ephraim, Issachar and them, they patterned their the movement that they were in according to what Judah had already established through the so-called Black Panthers. So there was a unity, right? But it says, and when I beheld, lo, the sinews and the flesh came up upon them. Yeah. So they started to awaken. They started to stand up for themselves. They started to find some type of identity or identifying the same problems with each other. It says, and the skin covered them above, but there was no breath in them because they were looking to try to better their situation by rising from within, so-called coming together, trying to pool their money together, trying to, certain ones of them were trying to run for Congress or whatever the case is, trying to get in there to change, things from within, but not understanding that the reason why this was happening was because of the curses that we suffer. And this is what most Jakes don't understand. They don't understand about the curses. They don't understand that why is it every time I try to do something positive, I always get knocked down, because the Most High is doing that. When we read the book of Haggai, I believe it's the first chapter, the Lord said you're gonna make money, but you're gonna put it into a bag with holes because I'm gonna blow upon it. And that's what happens. So for a long time, Jake wasn't really getting anywhere. And they did not understand or recognize that the reason why is because they're Israelites and because they were under curses. So that's why I said that there was no breath in them. They had for some of them that were sincere, they had a noble idea, but, they still were lost. It says, then said he unto me, prophesy unto the wind, prophesy, son of man, and say to the wind, thus saith the Lord, O power, come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain, that they may live. And that's exactly what happened. And then the Lord magnified it and sped it up when it came down time for the so-called internet to be created. But prior to that, it was all just street ministry, word of mouth. People were waking up, and it's no coincidence that it started in Harlem, because Harlem in New York is, spiritually Jerusalem. So let's get a couple of precepts on that. Let's go to the book of Romans, chapter 10 and verse 18. It says, but I say, have they not heard? Yes, verily, their sound went into all the earth, and their words unto the ends of the world. Because the words, this spirit, is what's doing the quickening. Matter of fact, let's get that real quick. Let's go to St. John chapter 6, verse 63. And it says, it is the spirit that quickeneth. So if you can read the words in this book, you can know and quote them, but if you don't have the spirit, you will not be quickened. And this is why these plantation Christians out here, they have a zeal of the Most High, but not according to knowledge. They don't have the proper breath in them. It is a spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit, and what? They are life. And this is the life-giving force, is the truth, the true knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the Bible. That's why the Lord said, I will give you passages which will feed you with knowledge and understanding. All right, now let's go from there to the book of Ezekiel 34. And 11. The restoration of Israel, right? For thus saith the Lord power, behold, I, even I, will both search my sheep and seek them out. How is the Lord searching his sheep and seeking them out? By the words in this book, because this is the quickening. This is what's going to get Jake out of that dry bone situation. As a shepherd seeketh out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep and will deliver them out of all places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. Because the Lord is allowing his prophets to come out here, allowing his words to be broadcasted to seal the elect, so that once the elect is sealed, what does it say in Revelation 7? Then the destruction can come. You see, this is before it's in the cloudy and dark day, because when the cloudy and dark day comes, that's it. It's going to be finished. So let's go back to Ezekiel chapter 37, and now let's go to 10. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, meaning the proper breath. So no longer were they calling themselves Black Panthers, Blackstone Rangers, the Brown Berets, the Young Lords, and all those different names that the AIM, American Indian, movement. None of that. They were coming together as Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Simeon, Ephraim, Gad, Manasseh, Reuben, Naphtali, Asher, Issachar, whatever tribe they're from. And the first ones that woke up were the tribe of Judah. Why is that? Because the Lord said he would save the tents of Judah first. And this is why Yahushua came to who first? To Judah. Then the rest of the tribes. And then Judah comprises of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And then the rest of the tribes, which is the northern kingdom, didn't come till later. Because the Lord was going to establish his primary, or his the head of the nation of Israel as far as tribe is concerned first. So that the rest of the tribes couldn't magnify themselves against, Judah. So it says, and they lived and stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great army. So this is a certain portion of these bones that received the true breath, and they stood upon their feet. And that's why Esau is nervous now. That's why I wanted to leave Ezekiel, Revelation 11. I'm going to read the 9th verse. And they of the people and kindred and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, which is 350 years, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves, because they didn't give them rest. They didn't give them that breath. But Yahweh Bashem Yahushai did. Right? Now I'm going to just jump to the 11th verse. And after 3 days and a half, and this is when it happened, to the day. Because when you go back, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, southern kingdom, was already being brought over here prior to 1619, 1620, or as early as I think it's the 1500s. They were already being shipped around. But 1619 is when the bulk of the 1619, 1620, that's when the bulk of the slaves were brought over here. And after this time period, that 350 years from the point that they got here to 1969, 1970, that's when this truth really started to flourish. It says, and after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from the Most High entered into them. That was that breath, the quickening. Because prior to that, Jake was in a dead state, in a dry bone state. And they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. Why? Because they see them taking their stand, and they're like, damn, how did they wake up? Now, there's something that High Priest Ahrayamlab, told us back then. I heard it indirectly. I'm not sure if I heard it on a cassette. I believe I heard it on a cassette. That he said that they were out there teaching on the island. I believe it was the island. On, I believe that was 44th, if I'm not mistaken. And this one limousine pulled up. I'm not sure if it was, I believe it was just one Edomite. It could have been two, but I believe it was one Edomite. Got out, read the sign, and he asked them, how in the hell did you guys find this out? We paid millions of dollars to keep this thing covered up. How did you find out about this? And it's the Lord. The same way with the 12 tribes sign. And that's a big issue, a big controversy. But yet, all the people that have a problem with it, nobody has a 12 tribe sign. It's amazing to me, man. Shit. All right. Now let's go back to Ezekiel 37 and 11. The vision explained. It says, then he said unto me, son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Why? Because the Lord is bringing back, he's building up the tabernacles of David, which are fallen. All right. Now let's go on. It says, behold, they say our bones are dried and our hope is lost. We are cut off for our parts. And that's why we became dry. Very, very dry. It says, therefore prophesy and say unto them, because the prophecy is important, because prophecy is the spirit of life that's being taught out there. And once that spirit of life, which is the seed, which is the word of the Most High, enters into the mind, the good ground of the elect, it takes root, it seals, and it delivers. And that's why it's so important to prophesy and be out there in the streets with that 12 tribe sign. Thus saith the Lord power, behold, O my people, I will open your graves. Why? Because the other nations didn't open the graves. We just read about that in Revelation 11. It was easy for them to say, y'all the Israelites, but they weren't going to do that. Because remember, during the time of the Renaissance period, what was there? From the moment Esau took hold on the planet, which was called the Renaissance period or the rebirth, the very first thing they did was what? To deceive the whole world. It says, and cause you to come up out of your graves and bring you into the land of Israel, because this is eventually where we're going to go, to the land of Israel, where we truly belong. But it begins first with the Lord waking us up, peeling back that veil, allowing us to see, bringing us out of that deep slumber to be able to see what's really going on before we can actually get there. And there's a process, and then we had to teach. That's why the Apostle Paul told Timothy, look, when you teach this word, make sure you teach it to those that will be able to teach others also. And you shall know that I am the Lord when I have opened your graves, O my people, and brought you up out of your graves, and shall put my spirit in you, and you shall live. See? Because you've had the word, the Bible has been out there for ages. How come it wasn't until 1969, 1970, through Elder Abba Bivens and the other men that he taught, that this word was being pushed out and the true awakening happened? Because this was the spirit of the Lord. See, Jake and their plantation Christianity, what they're teaching, they teaching the master's form of Christianity, which is love everybody, but they don't love you. Amazing. And I shall place you in your own land. Then shall you know that I, the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, have spoken it and performed it, saith the Lord. Reunion of Judah and Israel, because if you don't know the history of the 12 tribes being scattered, and you don't know the history of the 12 tribes being separate into two separate nations, then you got to go back and listen and watch and read that history and get acquainted with that history, because that is very important pertaining to prophecy, especially when it comes to this. It says, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah and for the children of Israel his companions, and take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel his companions. Why? Because the nation was split into two. The leader of the southern kingdom was Judah. The leader of the northern kingdom is Ephraim. And so when you take these two sticks and you write upon them all of these, the names of these tribes, and join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thine hand. And this is why we have the 12 tribes chart out there, because it's one stick or one plank, and it has a list of all the 12 tribes together, because this is what the Lord is doing. He's bringing the tribes back together. And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these? Yeah, because this is a conversation piece, and it opens up a whole door into, dialoguing with Jake when they sincerely asking a question of what do you mean by this? I see myself on the sign, Simeon or Judah or whatever. What do you mean by this? And then that opens up the door to be able to speak and teach about that, because that's what it's about. The Lord is bringing back the tribes. Say unto them, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his fellows, and will put them with him, even the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in mine hand. All right. So it goes on to say, and the sticks whereon thou writest shall be in thine hand before their eyes. That's why it's important to be out on the streets with the 12 tribe sign. It's good to do these lessons, on camera or whatever the case is, but the main ministry of this truth is out there on the streets, street ministry. That's the main ministry, because that 12 tribe sign has to be there in front of them for them to see it. And it never fails. You always have Jake there stop and look at the sign. Some of them might just look at it and keep going. Some of them might look at it and inquire and then leave. And some of them might they might just stay. That might just be the hook that gets them. inside joke. It says, and say unto them, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, and this is what's happening through the word, which I actually forgot to go to that one in Baruch, the 4th chapter. You could go to Baruch 4 and Baruch 5, where it speaks about the Lord gathering Israel by the word, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. And this is what the ministry is about. Salvation, so that we can get back to our own land. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. Why? Because we're split into two. And one king shall be king to them all. That's King David. Yahweh Bashem is ultimately going to be over everybody. But on the earth, you're going to have King David. He will physically be here ruling over Israel. And they shall be no more two nations. Why? Because we were split into two. Neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all. Because this is cemented. So when we go out there and bring out the sign and break it down to the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem, and you have those that say, well, no, the Latin tribes ain't Israelites, the Native American Indian tribes ain't Israelites. They're separating. The Lord said there will no more be two kingdoms anymore, two nations anymore. Yahweh said, he that gathereth not with me scattereth abroad. It says, neither shall they defile themselves anymore with their idols, nor with their detestable things, because this is what brought us down to that dead state, to that valley of the dry bone state. Nor with any of their transgressions, but I will save them out of all their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them, so shall they be my people, and I will be their power. Now let's go to Amos 9. 9 and 9. It says, for lo, I will command and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations. So how is the Lord doing the sifting? By the word. This word is what's doing the sifting. Shaking Jacob. That's what you're seeing certain Israelites waking up around the world that don't look like your typical so-called Negro, or so-called West Indian, or so-called Haitian, or so-called Puerto Rican, or so-called Dominican, so on and so forth. Like as corn is sifted in the sieve, yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth, because in the end, when the kingdom is established, all Israel shall be saved. There will not be any Israelites lost, because even the ones that get destroyed on this side will make it into the kingdom of heaven eventually. So it says, all the sinners of my people shall die by the sword, which say the evil shall not overtake nor prevent us. And that's that. That's what the Lord's going to do. He's only going to be a remnant that's going to be saved. Then again, here it says, the restoration of Israel. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David, which is the house of David, that is fallen, because we fell. We came to that dead state, that valley of the dry bone state, and close up the breaches thereof, meaning all of the differences between the tribes. It says, and will raise up his ruins, and will build it as in the days of old, when the whole nation was together as one. The only difference is now, before the kingdom of heaven, all the tribes will come together, but only the elect from the tribes will come together. Remember, Revelation 7, 12,000 out of the tribe of Judah, 12,000 out of the tribe of Benjamin, so on and so forth. So those are the only ones that's going to be saved, are the elect of the 12 tribes, and the multitude, which speaks about the nations and all that. That's talking about Israelites scattered, because they're being gathered by what? By the word. And I will raise up his ruins, and will build it as in the days of old. So back to Ezekiel 37 and 24, the Davidic kingdom. And David my servant shall be king over them, and they shall have one shepherd, because King David will be on the earth physically, to govern over Israel underneath Yahushai. Because remember, there are set thrones. There are going to be many thrones in the kingdom of heaven of the men. They shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. Why? Because they're going to be written into our inward parts, because we're going to be changed. And they shall dwell in the land that I gave unto Jacob my servant. Yeah, because finally, once that land is destroyed and renewed, then the Lord is going to, we're going to be able to be in that land and run it righteously, because it's holy to the Lord. But right now it's defiled, and it's been defiled for a long time. But the Lord is going to clean it up. He's going to clean us up. He's going to set us straight. And we're going to be all right. Everything going to be all right this morning. It says, wherein your fathers have dwelt, and they shall dwell therein, even they and their children and their children's children forever, because never again will we be taken out of that land. The scriptures say that how does it go? 2 Samuel, let me get that real quick. 2 Samuel 7:10. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people, Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more. Neither shall the children of wickedness, Esau, afflict them anymore as before time. All right? All right. So it says, and their children forever, their children's children forever, and my servant David shall be their prince forever. Ezekiel 37:26. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their power, and they shall be my people. And that's why we're no longer going to have the Ark of the Covenant there, because Yahushua is the Ark of the Covenant now. We're not going to have the sanctuary and the temple there. It says in Revelation 21 that there's not going to be a temple there, because the Most High and Yahushua's presence is there. Because the reason for the temple was in the Holy of Holies, to be set up with the Ark of the Covenant, with the cherubims and the mercy seat, was for the appearance of the Lord to come there to show his mercy upon us during the Day of Atonement, when the high priest would go in there and offer sacrifices for our sins. But the Lord is going to be there with us, because we're going to be perfect. We're not going to need to have an intercessor anymore to plead our cause, because the Lord is going to perfect us. That's why I said we shall be his sons and daughters. It says, and the heathen shall know that I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel, where my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. Yeah, because no longer are these nations going to jump up and claim that to be us. No longer are these nations going to be able to jump up and treat us like crap. They're going to be like, damn, those are the people of the Lord, truly. And they're going to acknowledge it like they acknowledged it in the past, but even greater. Because not only are we going to be changed physically, spiritually, mentally, laws, statutes, and commandments put into our minds, but we're going to have spiritual power. We're going to have a glow around us. We're going to be magnified greatly. That's why King David said, man, I can't wait till I wake up with your likeness. So there's going to be a great magnification. First and foremost of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, and then of us, the Israelites. And this is how it was supposed to be from the beginning, but we had to go through this trip. We had to go through this fall. And we had to be cleaned up, revamped, refurbished, and set back, on the path of righteousness, which we're on right now. All right, so that's been Ezekiel chapter 37. I pray that, this has been edifying, you brothers and your few sisters. And to the next time I say, Shalom.